Welcome back to Expert Rookie. I'm your lovely host, Rilesby, and today we have the lovely Marilee here. And for those of you who might not know who Marilee is, please tell us.
My name is Marilee. I am a mom. I've got 2 boys. I was born in Florida. I call myself kind of like a beach hippie. But then kind of like my alter ego is entrepreneur, very focus driven. So I kind of have like 2 sides. Spend a lot of time in nature, a lot of time with my kids, and a lot of time building a business.
Which your business did insane. It just did 165K in 1 year. And you just started this 3 years ago, the journey to get here. So how did we start all of that?
My business is teaching. Essentially, it's an education model, but I teach and more so like personalized support with teaching, but really a scope of things within financial markets. It's going to be anything from macro, how the macro factors drive markets, what to look for, in markets to see when we're shifting from something like a bull market into a bear market. We also focus on technical analysis, so like charts, reading charts, what's on a chart, what does it mean? And then, obviously psychology. When you get into markets, emotions can run really hot. So how to manage those things. So essentially it's just education on building up that skill set as a whole. So yeah, it kind of started 10 years ago, essentially, is when I kind of got into markets as a hobby. And I was introduced to Forex, which is a style of trading, but it's very technical focused, a lot of charts and stuff like that. And really over the course of the next 5 to 7 years, it was more of a hobby for me. I fell in love with how complex the charts were and how just like it was this puzzle that was like ever changing. And it was very challenging to my brain. And I thought that was really fun. And so I liked just doing it for fun. And I spent a lot of time with it, developed that skill. And then I was actually part of a mastermind that I joined in 2020, which focused on a lot of different things, different areas of focus. It wasn't just investing or markets. And over the course of that 3 years as a member, I learned a lot. I eventually ended up leaving because I was like, I think I've gathered everything I can gather. And I had been doing some charts and technical analysis like in there with some other members and stuff like that. And so I left, and the guy that ran it actually reached out to me, and he's like, would you want to come back and teach technical analysis and, trading to the members? They want to learn it, and that's not my area of expertise. And I know your skill set, and I would want you to come back and teach inside of my group if you would. I was like, whoa, that's super uncomfortable for me. Like, I've never taught anybody. Like, this is just kind of like my little thing that I do for myself. And I didn't have a whole lot of confidence because I've never really done it with other people, taught anyone or anything like that. So it was very uncomfortable, but I loved it. And so I was like, I'll give it a shot. I mean, if I fail, you could fire me, I guess. But, so I started teaching inside of that group. I actually built a whole curriculum for his group for like beginners, introducing them to charts and trading and kind of the basics of that. But there were so many students, and they were all at varying degrees of like skill set, really. Some of them had a lot more difficult time learning the stuff than some other people. Like, everyone kind of learns differently. And so there was this gap between like, I want to understand it more, but I need more like help. I need more like hand holding. I need people to answer my questions from like the students I was teaching. And so it kind of was a natural extension of what I was already doing, because I love that one-on-one type coaching. Like, I like to go back and forth with you and be like, which part do you not understand? Oh, this part kind of is confusing. Okay, cool. Well, let's dig into it. Here's why. Let's break it down. So like, I like that type of interaction. And so that really is what led me to do FTAs, because I enjoy doing that support. The students wanted more support in this area. Understandably so, it's very complex. So it took me many years to learn it. So if I can help someone collapse that timeline from years into months, and I enjoy it on the way, then that's kind of how FTA started.
So you said that at 18, your dad had said something to you that completely changed your idea of freedom and what it meant to be free and to live the life you want to live. What was that, and why did it change your perspective so much?
He said to me, it was this kind of rebellious moment. I was actually 17, because I remember very vividly, I hadn't moved out of the house yet, and I moved out right when I turned 18, partially for this reason. But I wanted to go out with my friends, and he was like, you need to be home by 10. And I was like, but why? And he was like, because I said so. And I was like, but why? Like, you're
Yeah.
not telling me why. And he wouldn't do it. And so it pissed me off so bad that I was like, you know what? I hate the feeling of not understanding why someone's doing something or why something's happening. And I've always kind of had an inquisitive mind, but that moment just stood out where it's like, I will always explain the why because I want to be explained the why too. Like, if I don't understand something, I want to understand not just that it's happening, but I want to understand why it's happening. And maybe that's just unique to me, but that's been something that has been really important to me, is understanding why something happens. And that drove a lot of, how I operate within FTA.
I think when you're making certain personal decisions about your life, you don't necessarily owe anyone an explanation. It's your life. You got to go after it. But also when it comes to the finances of it, right? Thinking about what you do, it would be really important to know the why. And that's something I would want to know because, and it's something I even talked about with my old companies that I worked for. It's like, why are we selling this product? Why are we trying to market it? And it would frustrate the hell out of me because the president of the company wouldn't even know. He's like, it's cool. I'm like, okay, people don't care if it's cool. Like, what is the reasoning people truly want this or need to know about it? So why do you think having the why and understanding the why is so important? And not just in life, but in your line of work.
Yeah. Well, I think specifically in what I do, it's important to know the why because, essentially what what I do is I teach education, right? And if you're going to go and say you've never managed your money before, you've had it with a financial advisor. Now, I'm not financial advice. I'm not saying you should take your money out if you don't know what you're doing. But there's a lot of people out there who want to manage their money or at least have more of an active role in understanding what their money's doing when it's sitting in whatever account, right? Or how is my money making me money, right? Or is it just going to sit there and lose purchasing power, right? The why is important because if you understand more of why something happens or why this is happening, it builds your confidence in reading the current situation. You're able to understand what's happening now. And if you have that level of confidence in what's happening now, you can make a more informed decision about what do I think is going to happen in the future based on what I know. And then if you're the one who's managing your money, you have to have that confidence because you can't borrow someone else's conviction. Like I see this a lot specifically in the trading space where someone says, here's this great setup. I make a lot of money by trading this specific setup, right? And someone's like, okay, well, you make a lot of money. I want to make a lot of money. Here's the setup. I'm just going to copy you. But most times you don't know why they got into that trade. You don't know what they're looking for to get out. And so you're in this trade now. You put up hundreds of your own dollars and you're like, well, should I sell? Should I stay in? Should I sell now? Well, what about now? Should I sell now? And you're just, it's constant stress because you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. You're just copying someone else because they said it was a good idea. So you extrapolate that to just your, whatever your personal portfolio looks like or whatever your personal finances are. It's a valuable thing to understand what you're dealing with and how to move through that when things change.
What determines the why?
So an example would be options. So options is a tool you can use when you are operating in markets that can add some leverage to, say, a view that you have. If I think Apple's going to go up, I could either buy Apple stock and then Apple stock goes up 5%, my investment goes up 5%, right? Options is a tool that can be used to kind of bump up that leverage. So if Apple goes up 5%, my option that I bought for Apple could go up 10 or 15%. So it's a reflection of how high your conviction is in something happening. So first thing is first, you have to have a view of what's going to happen. I think this is going to happen. And if you think that, well, how do you want to execute on that view? How do you want to translate what you're thinking into something tangible? So an option is a way to do that. But within an option, there's a lot of different moving parts that can influence how much money you make or lose, even down to like if a day passes, you could just lose money because the day passed. And if you don't understand options as a whole, like why do they move the way that they move? What influences the price? Then you're going to almost every time lose money because you just don't understand it. and you're gambling at that point. Right? You're just like, I don't know, I'll put this coin in the slot machine and maybe it'll work.
We ain't here in Vegas, y'all.
Exactly. So the point of understanding why is to have a clearer picture of what the possible outcomes are and what can influence something to go into any of those possible outcomes as far as like probabilities, which is essentially what markets are, is you're probably like basing it on probabilities.
Which is why we should have paid more attention in stats. So
Exactly.
So do you believe then that your why and your convictions lead to your financial freedom?
I think they do, in the sense that you can't make convicted decisions without understanding the why. Right? That's obviously not the only piece of the puzzle, but it is a big piece of the puzzle where if you don't know what you're doing or understand really the game you're playing, then you're just setting yourself up to fail, right? So it's very hard. You can get lucky, but it's very hard to consistently perform well in a game that you don't know what the rules are, right? So understanding the rules, understanding the mechanics of the game is really like where you need to start in order to start, like developing that skill set, essentially. So it's not the only piece, but it is a crucial piece, in my opinion, to having any sort of consistent success with markets on your own, essentially. I mean, you could put that with financial advisor if you want, but if you want to be handling it on your own, you have to understand mechanics and how the game's played, which is just hard to learn because there's so much information out there.
Do you think that also plays into life and like you making your decision of going from bartending into this and how you got there, changing your convictions, being confident in your why, and getting you now to a place where, you're a mom of two, you have your own business, you're crushing it at life. Like, how did we get there?
My mom influenced that a lot. So actually, my mom and dad had quite a bit of influence on me. But my mom would always say, she homeschooled us, and I'm one of 9. So we have 9 kids. My mom homeschooled all of us. I'm in the middle. But something she would tell all of us was, find something you enjoy doing and do that thing, right? And she was never really, obviously as a homeschool mom, she wasn't super hard on grades. Like we all got well, we did well in school, we got good grades, but that wasn't like her main focus. Her main focus was always do what you enjoy. And so for me, that looked like I was 14 and I really enjoyed decorating cakes. So they gave me a couple like cake decorating classes, and then I went around my neighborhood and I would offer to bake cakes for the neighbors' birthdays. And I would sell those cakes for like $30 a piece, and I'd decorate them and I make it all from scratch. And so that was like my first business. But
I love it.
But I loved it. It was something I loved to do. And I was like, okay, if you love it, like try to do it for something that, provide enough value that you can get paid for it. Like essentially kind of what I gathered from that was, if you're good enough at something and you enjoy that thing, then one, you're going to become maybe not one of the best, but you're going to get so much better in that skill set over a shorter period of time, because you can, for lack of a better term, you can outwork everyone else because you want to do the thing. You want to get better because you enjoy it. And that's kind of how my whole journey was. Like I just became obsessed with, I just loved charts. I loved technical analysis. I loved reading, what the markets were doing and piecing that puzzle together in my own head. And so, the 10,000 hours it takes to master something, like I put in 10,000 hours, but it felt like 2 days. Like it felt like such a short period of time because I loved it. When you compare the two together, where it's like you enjoy something so much and it's a skill that is valuable to others, right? If someone wants to learn something and you want to learn it quickly, you generally go find a mentor, right? You find someone who can help you get there faster. And so that's kind of how it all played out for me with FCAs. It was just this natural progression into the next thing. And because I loved it so much, it was like, it doesn't feel like work to me. It's just literally I wake up and just have fun. So, and then it's flexible schedule, and there's so many other things, but essentially like, I just love what I do. And it's clearly a valuable enough skill where, I can help someone else learn that same thing, and they can achieve their goals in that specific area of their life. And I have fun doing it.
One of the things I saw you post on your Instagram was that you didn't put a timeline on achieving being an entrepreneur and achieving learning all of this stuff that you need to know to be in the position you are now. And I think that's really interesting because there's this whole idea of like we're constantly behind in life. And especially as someone who's in her 20s right now, you just feel like you're behind the world. You're not achieving anything. You're not where you should be in life. And you're like, hold on, it'll be fine. But to the point of why did you tell yourself that? And B, how do you think it played into where you are now?
I think it played a huge role in that journey for me. And sometimes it's easier said than done, but like that phrase, enjoy the process, right? And it does kind of lead into what I was saying earlier, which is like if you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't feel like it's not difficult to do the thing, right? And it can be frustrating, like if you have a timeline that you mentally impose on yourself to like, I need to be here at this point. You're just adding stress to your life, right? There's no need. There's no need. And what's interesting is like when you add, whether it's a timeline stress or like a dollar amount stress of like, I need to make this much before I consider myself successful, or I need to be here by this time, otherwise I'm going to give it up, right? You box yourself in, and it actually changes how you show up to the thing, right? Because now you're no longer doing it for the joy of it. You're doing it because you need to get something from it. And if you're trying to get something from it, you can't actually truly, in my opinion, absorb what you're learning, because your part of your head is like, well, I need to do it faster. I need to do it better. I need to be quicker. I need to be smarter. And to me, it affects how I absorb the information, because I'm not fully focused on the information anymore. And I think it can set you back quite a bit. So going back to that, I think that because I loved it so much, and because I guess I kind of knew like there's no way I could speed it up. Like I have 2 kids, I have this amount of hours I can put into it. And I always had this kind of wild belief that like eventually it's going to happen. If I just keep going, it's going to happen. The only way it's not going to happen is if I quit. Right. And so, unless I die. so hopefully let's not die before I get there. But
it's only one option.
But I was like, like if I'm enjoying it each time I show up, then I can just continue to enjoy it until it becomes fruitful. And that's didn't take as long as I thought. But I do think looking back on it, like putting that self-imposed time frame actually does impact how you are able to absorb the information that you're trying to learn.
And expectation is the killer of all happiness and all dreams. Yeah. And it's something that I even tell my students of, if you are doing what you love, the money will come, but you can't put a time frame on it, because the world works in mysterious ways. The Lord, the universe, whoever you want to put there, we can't foresee the future, but what we can do is enjoy the moment that we're in right now, enjoy what we're learning, and put our heart and soul into that.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, if you keep going, you can't ever fail.
Yeah.
You just get to where you're going.
Exactly. Eventually you get there at some point.
At some point.
Yeah.
So you had said that you figured out how to manage it within a certain amount of time, right? And by manage it, I mean you figured out how to learn what you needed to learn while working, while being a mom of 2. And we often think that we don't have enough time to go after our dreams or to work in something that we love. How did you manage doing all of that?
Well, one was kind of what we just talked about, where it's like the expectation of I need to do it in this time frame, right? So take that part and just pretend like we have no time frame. But it was literally in the pockets of my day. So like I had 2 small kids at the time, and they had naps, they had food, they had whatever. Like I was home with them for the most part during the day because I bartended at night. And it was literally like 30 minutes while they were napping, or while they were eating their lunch. Like I would look at a chart, maybe like they're playing with the dog, and so it was very short spurts throughout the day. It was little pockets through my day. But the consistency over the long period of time was that I did it every day. It was maybe 10 minutes one day, or maybe it was like 30 minutes one day. And maybe there was a couple days where I didn't do it because, life gets crazy. But I always came back to it, right? I always was like, this is having some sort of outlet of something I enjoy, something that I think eventually will be able to help my financial situation. If I can get good enough at it at some point, it will pay me back for it. And that was always, I mean, obviously I had the goal of, freedom through entrepreneurship. My dad was an entrepreneur. So, and he provided extremely well for our nine kids. So he did very well for himself. And I always wanted to go that entrepreneurial route. One, because I liked obviously the financial benefit is much larger than being an employee. It's like not even comparable. But two, it's you get flexibility with, your time for the most part if you have the right business model. And then there's just other, time freedom, location freedom if you work remotely. And so kind of the idea of getting really good at trading and managing money, my own money and investing and things like that, it kind of fit all of those boxes. And I knew that like long term that if I could get good enough at it, it would give me all of those things. And so that's what kept me showing up every day. Was like, I have 2 kids and I actually want to take my kids on some badass vacations. Like, I didn't get to go on any cool vacations. Like we went to the beach and stuff like that, but we had 9 kids. Like you can't do much with 9 kids. And
it's like a whole airplane of kids.
It's a whole airplane of kids. It's literally a whole bus to yourself. So I never really got that experience as a kid. And once I had my own kids, I was like, man, like I want them to have some cool freaking experiences when they're growing up. Like I want that for them because I didn't have something cool like that. How can I do that? Okay, well, this, and this would tick those boxes. So even when they were very young, it was just a goal that I had to have something that would generate that type of freedom for me, like financial, time, location. And so that why really kept me showing up as frequently as I needed to, as I could, to just keep getting a little bit better every day.
Did you ever have periods of question marks or anxiety where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I should just say screw it and give it all up now?
Yesterday. No, but yeah, absolutely. I still do. Every once in a while, I'm like, what am I even doing here? What am I doing? There's so many like smarter, better like people out there that could be doing what I'm doing. Like, what am I even trying to do? But yeah, I mean, that's part of the game. It really is. I've had that experience since I started learning about trading. So 10, 11, 12 years ago, however long that year ago was, 11 years. But yeah, I mean, it's just self-doubt, right? You have that about whatever you're learning, right? I think recognizing the fact that it actually has nothing to do with you or your skill set. It's just that comparison factor of like, I don't know what I'm doing relative to them. Like, I know what I'm doing relative to the me 3 years ago. Like, I'm way smarter than that person. But it's when you start to look outside of that and you look at like, well, I'm not as good as that person. You're comparing yourself to others is truly, in my opinion, where you can actually come really close to like failing by quitting. But yeah, I definitely have those moments. And thankfully, I learned pretty early on that it was like, it's not helpful to me. It doesn't make me smarter. It doesn't improve my skill set. It doesn't get me closer to my 3 goals. So the sooner I can get out of that funk and just be like, you know what, just keep doing the thing, just keep showing up, then it tends to go away pretty quickly.
One of the things I always say to myself is, I'm a different version of me than I was 5 minutes ago. And the person who I was 5 minutes ago didn't know what I know now. Mm-hmm. So this version of me can do what I need to go and do. Yeah. And you can just show up and be your most confident self and say, hey, fuck it, I got this. Yeah. Let's go.
Yep. Yeah. And even if I don't got it, I'm still gonna figure it out.
One of the things you mentioned to me is how much your relationship played into the person you are today and where the business ultimately went. How did it play such a significant role?
I got married when I was 20, so I was very young when I got married. I had my son at 21, and I just didn't know who I was when I was 20, right? I thought I knew who I was, like, literally 20. I'm just like, what were you doing? But I got married when I was 20. I had my 2 sons, and the point in the relationship when, I had been, after I had my sons, is kind of when I started focusing on like, what do I want for my life? What do I want to provide in their lives that I didn't have? And that took me down kind of the entrepreneurial path of like, well, I need to get good at something. I need to understand, my values of pursuing constant growth. Like, you're not going to have freedom in these areas unless you're constantly pushing yourself to grow. Among other things, self-reflection, honesty, integrity, all those things that are important as you grow as a person. If you want to do something that provides value to other people, you have to become a certain type of person. So as I was figuring all this stuff out over the course of, my early 20s, newly married, and I'm like, yeah, this absolutely resonates with me. These values resonate with me. This type of, person who I'm becoming resonates with me. Was slowly pushing me away from the person that my husband was at the time. Like, he did not have those values. He had zero interest in entrepreneurship, and we were just very different people. And so there was a pivotal moment there when I was like, this relationship is not working, not because anything's wrong per se, but just if I stay here, I won't become the person that I want to be. And if I stay here and I don't become that person, I'm going to resent him because I would feel like he's keeping me, holding me back.
It only hurts both of you and mostly you by that happening.
Right. So I had to make a really hard decision to get a divorce, which he was very confused and not happy about, and it was really scary, right? For me. He ended up moving back to Nashville. We lived in Florida at the time. My sister ended up stepping up and helping me out with taking care of my kids in that transition. And so that moment really solidified like my belief in who I wanted to be and the values that I had and the person that I wanted to be because of where I wanted to go. And like, if I want to go here, this is the type of person I need to be. This is the type of values I need to embody on a regular basis. So making that decision was just like you're committing to this now. You're actually doing it. You can't go back now. So that was really the first pivotal moment. And then with my most recent relationship, when I was in, that was they were both about 7 years, give or take. I can't remember which one was 6.5, which one was 7.5, but essentially they were both about the same amount of time. But when I started FTA in April of last year, at the time I was the only one bartending. I was the only one working and bringing in money. He didn't have a job. Said he was trying to find a job. Could never find another job. It was like a year or something, almost a year that he was out of work. And but it was interesting because he wasn't working, but then I'm spending all this time trying to build up this business, right? I just opened FTA and I'm like giving all this value to my students because I'm like, I want to give the most I possibly can to support my students because that's what lights me up. And it was like these little things, like he would just, pull me away and like make me feel bad for spending time on my business. And it was like, hey, like it was just this, it was just pulling me away. I could feel it pulling me away from what I was really wanting to do. Not that I didn't want to spend time with my family, not that I didn't want to spend time with him, but it's like, you can do both, right? And I believe you can do both. But you can't do both if someone's constantly pulling you away from the other side. Really. So I was still like just trying to make that work. And then in the summer of last year was when we split up. And I remember I had it was mid-June, and I had an enrollment in August. And at the time I had like 16 students or so. And obviously like it was really sudden breakup, it was really rough time for me. And I just remember in that August enrollment, I more than doubled my students in that single like week of enrollment. And I was just like, maybe I do have something here. Like, and that's kind of like where this belief of like, I don't know if there was a subconscious pull of like, well, I shouldn't be spending time on this because maybe I'm not good enough. And that's why he wants me to stay, hanging out with him, or, there's probably a multitude of sabotaging thoughts that were there. But I know that I can be a present parent and a successful business owner. I know that I can give value to my students and be there for my kids and have family nights with movies. Like, I don't have to pick and choose between the two. I can have both. And I think once I was able to like see that in action, because now I can spend time with my business and I can spend time with my kids, and I didn't feel like I was being pulled between the two. And I guess just when I could actually do that is when FTA just like blew up. Like it just started flourishing. And I was just like, whoa. Maybe it was that. Likely it was that. Maybe it was something else, but that was a pretty pivotal moment.
Well, one of the things Nick and Jason being our coach, talks about all the time, Jason, is the fact that when you have your energy strings being pulled in in so many different directions, you're not realizing how much subconsciously you're giving to everything else.
Mm.
And so in doing that, you're not putting your attention and your focus, which is your most valuable asset, on the one thing it needs to be, which is your family, your kids, and your business.
Mm.
And when you're trying to hold up this relationship that isn't working anymore, it takes away from those other things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like Chris Williamson always talks about the lonely chapter. And it's like sometimes you have to leave behind these people and a life that you once knew to get where you're trying to go, so that your energy and your attention can be put in the right place to grow you as a person, to grow your business, your family, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that helped me after that, and again, like I've had two breakups technically, but the first one I was pretty like set on where I was like that it was over before it really ended.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this second one was very much so like all of a sudden, right? And it was kind of like this is where I think my life's going to be in 5 years with this person, with how things are going and the business, and like hoping it would kind of work out. And then all of a sudden to be like, whoa, all those things that I thought were going to happen in my life are like, all of it's gone right now. So like, but it's really, I can see how it would be very easy to, and I'm not saying that, you can't reflect on things, but focusing on like what could have been or the past or what went wrong, or kind of just spending your mental energy in the past where it's already over and done. Right.
Mm.
And it was very easy and tempting to do that. And I had to make a very, very conscious daily decision to be like, I'm not going to think about that. It's only going to make me upset. I have to focus here. I want to focus here. I want to focus on what I have, what I'm grateful for, my kids, my family, my health, all of these things that are going to benefit my future life, instead of spending all this time thinking about what happened that I have no control over. It's just going to make me miserable. Right. And I think I know that was extremely helpful, in how I showed up with my students too, how I showed up with my kids, like how I showed up, just how I was present in my life, I think was very greatly improved by like that conscious decision to like absolutely minimize the past showing up.
Were there things that you did to quote unquote minimize the past, or like different tactics you used to be like, hey, we don't need to worry about this now. We don't need to think about it. So I can show up as my best self when I'm here with my kids.
Yeah, I think really gratitude is what it ultimately almost every time went back to. You see something, you hear a song or whatever, and it like brings up all these memories. And then you're like, well, why? That's sad because now I don't have those memories or whatever, those future memories that I thought I was going to have. And so it triggers things. Obviously, I think everyone who's gone through a breakup understands that. But anytime I would notice that, I literally would just be like, what am I grateful for? Like, what am I grateful for now? What do I have now that I would be so sad if I didn't have? And then I would list all those things out, and it would like pattern interrupt, and it would just make me like help me shift into that. Because, it could have gone on a lot longer if I didn't do that. But I think gratitude was for sure the biggest needle mover in getting me to like mentally shift my mind. And then once I did that for enough days and weeks over and over, then it just kind of like started to go away.
What would you say to someone who feels like they don't have anything to be grateful for in the moment, or feels like they can't find anything?
My 9-year-old says that all the time. He's like, well, I don't know what I'm grateful for. And I was like, all right.
You're like, rude? Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm your mother? Me? Like,
your life.
Yeah, this house?
No, I mean, I understand, like, especially if you're in that comparison bubble of you're like, well, I don't have what they have. I don't have what they have. I don't have what they have. And sometimes it's hard to like see outside that bubble. And if that's the case and you're kind of maybe your circumstances aren't exactly what you want them to be and you're not, don't have anything to be grateful for, I would say go to like basic needs. You have air, you have a house, you have food coming in, you have a bed, right? If you have nothing else, most people have those things. You might have a family that loves you. Maybe you don't, but if you do, that's something to be grateful for, right? Even if you don't see them all the time, even if you guys get pissed off at each other, you still have a family member who loves you, right? And I think anyone that says I don't have anything to be grateful for just hasn't thought enough about it and probably refuses to think about it because, to be completely honest, a lot of people, it feels good to feel sorry for yourself. And they like that feeling of like, oh, poor me. And I don't think it happens consciously, but when you get to the point where you say, I'm tired of feeling miserable, you have to take accountability for your thoughts and you have to take accountability on where you're spending your thoughts. And if you're focusing a lot of your thoughts on, woe is me, I don't have enough, I lack this, that is 1000% what you're going to pull more of into your life. So the second you can understand you're having those thoughts and you shift to, I'm grateful that I have this, I have this, I have this, I have all these amazing things, my life is good, you're going to start pulling a lot more good into your life.
It is very easy for us to become addicted to the victim mentality and not even know it. And I say that because my mother called me out on it the other day. Like we got into an argument and I don't remember quite what I said to her, but I said something like, because I was living with her at the time, I was like, yeah, God, I'm just the worst roommate. Like, I'll just move out or, something like along those lines. And she's like, stop playing the victim. She's like, that's not. She called me out on my BS. And she's like, I'm not saying that. But why are you going down the lane of trying to make yourself a victim in this moment? You don't need to do that. She's like, look at what you have done, and where you are going, right? Look at those three things and look at everything in between that you have to be grateful for. And at the bare minimum, you're healthy. Like, bare minimum, I can walk. And we forget that so often because there is a world out there telling us to be fearful, telling us that we should hate our lives, that we are lacking. I mean, that's what half of marketing is telling you that you're lacking a Hershey's chocolate bar and you need to go get it right now. And all of a sudden we become addicted to that cycle of, I'm lacking, I have nothing, I am a victim to the system. Instead of making the conscious choice, which isn't easy and it takes a lot of work. And I'm sure you felt that when you're having to try and rewire your brain every 5 seconds.
Brainwashing yourself.
Literally.
I'm good. Flames around you.
But it's the good brainwashing. And it reminds you there are things that are beautiful in this life and we should find those things and create those things in our life and start believing in those and seeing them versus just believing that everything's a nightmare and only nightmares are going to come to us.
Oh, yeah. I actually had a mentor that he would say, like, every day, like journaling every day. And part of the journal prompt was, where did you find the magic today? And he called it finding the magic. But essentially, it's like you find something awesome that happened that day. You can't go to bed until you find something awesome that happened that day. And it trains your brain to look for it. Because if you're not looking for it, you could easily just miss it. If my 9-year-old thinks that his dinner is not up to par, right? Well, guess what? You have a dinner. But if you're not looking for that, if you're not looking for something that you can be grateful for, you easily will find something to not be grateful for. You'll find ways that you don't have enough. When you pair your intention with your attention, I want to find the magic in the day. That's what I want because I want to shift my thinking and my attention is going to help me find it. When you pair two together on the same thing, you start to rewire your brain in whatever way you're trying to do it.
One of the things I was talking about with my friend Jack is the idea of finding beauty versus creating beauty. Do you believe in creating your own beauty?
Well, it's kind of like creating your own beauty, creating your own happiness. Like, you absolutely should create beauty. right? I think everyone has the ability to create anything, and beauty is more so about perception. Creating something you think is beautiful could be different for everybody, right? It's again, like my 9-year-old he's very much an artist. He likes to draw, but he is very self-conscious and compares himself a lot to his drawing. Like he's a great artist, but he never thinks his art is good enough. And so it's just I'm just like, it's beautiful. What are you talking about? He's like, it's not good enough. He's like, it's ugly. I'm like, no, it's not. But it's truly in the eye of the beholder. And if you create something that you think is beautiful and it makes you happy, then yes, I think we absolutely can create beauty anywhere we want. And that could look like a physical thing. It could look like a beautiful connection. It could look like a kind word. Like, again, it's very subjective, but whatever, if you think something is beautiful, then create that thing. Yeah.
I think we often get so caught up in not just the comparison game, but in the things that we should have, right? And that going along the lines of expectation, but social media just has this heightened sense of like, look at my life and look at where I am,
Mhm.
instead of realizing what you have in the present moment.
Mhm.
And over the weekend, I was at my friend's wedding, and it was just the most beautiful representation of life and what it's all about. And literally we we got in on Thursday night, Friday, set up the entire wedding venue. They had the wedding. On Sunday, we took it all down. And I'm just watching as like 45 people are giving their time, their energy, their happiness to these people that we love,
Mhm.
this couple that's getting married. And it's like, how many people would do that for you in your life? And
Mhm.
I think sometimes we get so caught up in like trying to make life look good, trying to make things work, trying to build a career that we end up hating,
Mhm.
that we forget that life is really about the people that you bring with you, the
Mm.
people who you walk with,
Yeah.
and what you're trying to do with your life, right? And impacting people, making this about more than just I have money,
Mhm.
and more than just I have the riches and the house and I live in a penthouse,
Yeah.
and all of that to say is it was a beautiful reminder that we can create this for ourselves. I mean, I think they moved to Atlanta 2-3 years ago, and in that time brought together this beautiful band of people. Why can't we do that for ourselves? Why can't we see that that is a possibility for us? I think we just get so caught up in the comparison game and the where we are right now, instead of realizing A, what we have, and B, the possibilities of what we could get if we change our energy and our attention to start reflecting that.
I feel like it all kind of comes back to like this dual path of like abundance or lack, right? Love or scarce or fear, and it's like, and it weaves itself into every decision we make or every thought that we have. And it's either one or the other. Like you're either moving closer to this side or you're moving closer to this side. But like what's funny is, if you want what someone else has, like I want to have that beautiful relationship, or I want to have, that beautiful house or whatever it is, and you want what they have, focusing on what they have pushes you down the other way, right? Whereas understanding that, like, if I just enjoy where I'm at right now and I continue to do what I know is right, treat people the right way, act the right way, give value, then I'm going to move towards that direction. I teach this, I actually have so many conversations with my own kids about this, where it's like, I want to drive home this fact like so hard into their brains before they become an adult. Cause like my older son, he loves F1, he loves race car driving. And I'm like, he loves, he loves sushi. My younger son loves octopus. I'm like, you guys have some fancy taste for like kids. Like you guys have some
That
some
bougie.
fancy bougie taste. And I'm like, you guys need to figure this out real quick. I was like, you don't understand this yet, but I was like, when you become an adult and you start to work in the real world, like, money doesn't come as easily as you think it does. Like just what your expectation is. I was like, the thing that you need to remember, is that if you can provide value to someone else, you're going to get back so much more than you give. If you're constantly focused on getting more for yourself, I need more money, I need this, I need a house, I need this, whatever. And you're focused on it for yourself, for your own selfish purposes, you're just going to pull more emptiness, more lack into your life. But if you shift your focus to being generous with your time, with your words, with your, with your money that you have, with whatever you have, and you're constantly serving and giving up to other people, it is impossible to not get more back that way. But it's true. You compare and then you just get pushed down into that lack. And like you said before, it's like you get into that cycle of feeling like the victim, and that lack mindset is very hard to get out of, because then you're like, I don't have anything to be grateful for. And it's like, you do, you just got to find it. Yep.
Do you believe in the concept that money is energy?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Money is absolutely energy. Money is a reflection of how you show up in the world. That's kind of leading back to what I said, where it's like, if you show up where you are abundantly giving of your time, the energy of money will abundantly flow into your life. And it could be in 1,000 different ways. It doesn't even have to be in a business. It could be, there's so many different ways. But I believe it is absolutely a reflection of who you are and who you present yourself to be. Not in like a fake way, but like actually your genuine, intentions with how you show up in the world. I had this really cool practice, I think. It was more of an exercise than a practice. And it like blew my mind when I did it the first time. Because I was kind of just starting my like personal development journey and like learning all this stuff about growth and mindset and abundance and things. And the practice was to write a love letter to money. And I was like, a letter to money. So like the example, like the one that it's funny, I still have the journal and I like go back and read it every once in a while, but it was like, the way that it was phrased is, you're literally writing it as if money was a person. And, I think mine was, I'm sorry for not appreciating you. Like, I'm sorry that I don't thank you enough for all that you do for me. Right. And essentially, like, you're shifting your brain to be like, every dollar that comes into your account is a blessing. And you're treating it with such gratitude. And even if it's not enough, right? It could be less, right? You could have no money coming in. And even if you don't, then when you do have that money coming in, it's like you have this intention again and this attention that you're piecing together to express gratitude to all that money can offer you, right? And that in and of itself is shifting your energy and how you view money, right? If you're treating it like, it's not good enough, right? If you're in a relationship where that person doesn't care about you and you're like, here's this nice thing. And they're like, I don't care. Not good enough. Give me more. Like if you were in a relationship with someone that treated you that way, you'd be like, I'm out of here. Like,
Gone.
I am gone. It's the same thing, right? If you don't appreciate what you have, you're not going to be given more of it.
Mm-hmm. And I keep hearing that too about how you are in a relationship is exactly how you are with money. There was this period of time in my life where I was struggling to have jobs, right? And it was like so much instability of I get a job and then I lose it. And then I get a job and then the contract's up. And it's like, there's just no commitment. During that same period, I had zero commitment in any relationship I was in. And that wasn't necessarily on my end, but I was like, why do I keep attracting guys who don't commit to me? Like, what is this about? And it's like, well, you keep attracting guys and jobs and people into your life that don't commit to you because you're not committed to yourself. You are not okay just being you and accepting you and loving you and knowing that you deserve the world and you deserve a person, a job, money that commits to you. And so how you handle one thing ends up being how you handle all things.
Yeah, 100%. I think there was this one time where it was about relationships. I was talking to someone and they were saying, if you're in a relationship where, say, they're not treating you the way that you want to be treated, it's like, are you treating you the way that you want to be treated? Right? Are you showing up the way that you want someone else to show up for you? And it's really easy to say, well, he didn't do that for me. I'm not going to do it for him. And it's really hard to be the bigger person and be like, I want someone to bring me breakfast in bed, right? Why won't they bring me breakfast in bed? Which I love breakfast in bed, by the way. It's so good. But it's like, you don't bring me breakfast in bed, and it makes me upset. And then it makes the other person feel bad. And they're like, well, either bad or mad. And they're like, well, now you're shaming me that I don't bring you breakfast. I didn't think about it. Or, well, you don't bring me breakfast either. Like, why would I bring you breakfast? Same thing. And then you just go back and forth with each other. Or you could be like, I really want breakfast in bed. I'm going to bring breakfast in bed to them. And you do. And they're like, this is so nice. Wow. I'm going to bring you breakfast in bed. And then you actually get it, right?
Right.
It's like when you start to show up as what you would want someone to show up for you as, that's where that like positive cycle starts. Because before that, it's just that negative cycle of you're not, well, you're not, well, you're not. And no one breaks out of it. But being the person that actually breaks that cycle and goes the other way is really hard. Because there's kind of, back to you said, the victim mindset of like, well, it's not my job. Like, they don't want to, like, most people don't want to take responsibility for it, right? It's hard to take responsibility, but it's super important. That's a whole other topic.
Well, it's super important, but it makes us vulnerable when we take responsibility.
Yeah.
And it leaves us up to, well, are they going to stay? Are they not going to stay? And it makes us insecure in ways. And I think that just goes back to evolution and how we've evolved to try and stay with the Jesus, what's the word? The herd. Thank you. I was like, it's not a huddle. That's not it. Stay with the herd. But I was at the airport today, and this TSA woman was not happy, and she was just ripping everyone a new one, including me. And not gonna lie, I literally was like, I'm going to say some choice words here. And I took a step back and I realized that, okay, there's something going on in her head or in her world that we can't see and we don't know. And it's affecting how she shows up today. But that doesn't have to affect how I show up. Because when you can be the energy source, when you can be the one that walks in the room and changes the vibe with your positivity, your kindness, your love, your compassion, that is when everyone else starts showing up differently, because they're like, oh, I like that. That's really nice. That feels really good, right? Instead of this negative energy. So instead, I gave kindness. Instead, I showed up and, was like, have a great day. When I could have been like, excuse me, bitch. Who do you think you're talking to?
And it probably would have been validated.
Yeah.
Which is probably what most people did or wanted to do.
Yeah, right. But we have a choice in each moment of how we're going to show up and what our energy brings. And that changes the perception of the situation ultimately. And it can also change how we judge the moment and how we judge ourselves in that moment. So one of the things I've been working on in myself lately is watching how much my mind judges me, and then how much in those moments I then am either judging other people, judging the situation, and making it to be something negative when it isn't necessarily a negative thing. Yeah. So my mom, I always used to say that she was judging me, or like, why, back to your point of like, why won't they bring me back breakfast in bed? I'm like, why does my mom not support me? Why does my mom feel she is constantly having to criticize me? Or I just used to get so irritated because we'd be out in public and she's like, you have bronzer on your face. And I'm like, stop touching my face. We are in a public place.
I'm not 4 anymore.
Yeah, literally, right? And I internalized that, and I'm like, she's always judging me. She's always looking at my appearance. I'm not good enough. But what I realized is, no, those are the things I'm telling myself. She's showing up out of a place of love and wanting me to be my best self, which means making sure my bronzer's all blended in and asking me questions, which I often took as, why are you being so critical?
You're interrogating me.
Literally. And that's just not the case
Yeah.
because she's showing up from a place of love. But when we are not feeling love for ourselves, we can't see that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the TSA lady, whatever was going on in her mind, all she could see is these dumbasses over here don't know what they're doing. And they need to fix that. They need to stop being like that.
Yeah.
And our perception is literally changed just by how we show up for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy how, and the interrogation kind of like comment, like I experienced that when I was a kid, and I know I'm sure everyone experiences it with someone else at some point, right? Like, I think you mean this, like even though you didn't say it, I think you mean this because this is how it's coming across in my ears or how I'm perceiving it, and you have like a completely different story in your head, and it's like how we see the world is based on whatever lenses we're wearing. Like if the lens we're wearing is people are angry, people are mean, people are, selfish. Well, am I doing anything to change that? Am I the light, or am I also someone who's selfish, someone who's, potentially mean to other people? Like, how am I showing up in regards to that? And if I am, and that takes a lot of self-reflection, and you have to actually hold yourself accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to do that because then you have to admit that you are in the wrong sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's not easy to do. And it's, most people don't do it, right? And I was, it's like if you are someone who does what 98% of the population does, avoids hard conversations, doesn't take responsibility for your actions, experiences lack because they're comparing themselves to others, right? Is 98% of the population are they having the life that you want to have? Right? Are they experiencing the type of abundance that you want to have? Are they experiencing the type of success that you want to have? Usually the answer is no. I don't know. Maybe some people have some crazy cool circles, but I'll be in those circles. But for the most part, like, you're comparing yourself to the, for lack of a better term, the other sheep, right? That's most people just kind of maneuver through life without much intention and attention of where they want to go. They just kind of react to certain things. And I mean, we've all done that. I have done that. I still have times when I do that too, like where no one's perfect.
Mm-hmm. But it's easier to do that. It is
easier
easier
to
to stay with the herd,
right,
than to be a lonesome wolf trying to make your way in the world, maybe trying to have a different perception, have a different intention. But again, that leaves you quote unquote vulnerable and maybe lonely. But not for long. That's my belief. So
you'll attract the people that are like you too. So if you start to go out and kind of go against the grain, and you start to, not go to parties every weekend, or you start to show up and, spend more time developing a skill set than you do scrolling Instagram, and you're making these intentional changes to improve yourself. You're doing things that most people don't do. Those changes, like compounding over time, will lead you to outcomes such as, whether it's whatever form of success you view as, like, it doesn't have to be money or whatever, but if you have a view of what you think successful is, and you start doing the hard things that it takes to get there, because no one else is going to do it, over time, you'll start to attract into your life the same people who are doing the same things, trying to make their own way and going against the grain as well. And it's just, again, it's hard to do, but it's a positively reinforcing cycle once you kind of build that habit and build that momentum of being able to really control your thoughts and how you think, how you act, what you say, what you focus on. And it's like once you go through the hard, like muddy phase of like figuring it out and practicing it and reminding yourself and going back to it and doing it, and you start to get into that flow of like, and no one's perfect, again, we all have kind of ebbs and flows, but once you can recognize it, at least when you shift back into that mindset and you can consciously bring yourself out of it, you're at a point where, you can do some seriously awesome things.
What do you think was the biggest change you made in your life, and maybe the hardest change you made when trying to become the version of you that you are today?
I would say it was probably my first divorce, for sure. Because that was like me actually just like taking responsibility for making this decision about who I wanted to be, where I wanted to go, and like actually owning that I wasn't there and I needed to do something in order to get there. And it was scary, it was uncomfortable. That was probably the hardest decision I've made. It was actually in the process of leading up to that divorce, probably in the 2 to 3 years prior to that, that I really was focusing on, the money mindset. Like, that's when I wrote the letter to money. That's when I was, understanding more about like, your thoughts and controlling your thoughts and focusing on gratitude and all that stuff. And it's been a continual process, like learning that stuff and just continuing to implement it in my life. But leading up to that and learning that stuff prior to that divorce really helped me to be able to be like, okay, this is the right thing to do. Like, it's scary, but I know it's the right thing. Like, I can feel it in my bones.
What would you say to someone who is maybe at that point in their life when they're struggling to figure out if a relationship or a situation that they're in right now is maybe not right for them, and they're thinking about leaving or making a change, but struggling to find the confidence, struggling to know if it's the right decision? How did you find yourself at that place where you're like, I'm ready, I know I need to do this, and I'm confident to move forward in it?
Well, it took me about 2 years from when I first was like, I don't know if this is going to work, to actually saying that we're going to get a divorce. So everything happens in the correct timeline. I think everything happens precisely when it's supposed to. But as far as like whether or not it's the right choice or not, like, obviously, there's dozens of, you know, scenarios that you go through in your head of like, is this right? Is this not? Why is this right? Why is this not right? And I think ultimately a big part of that is your subconscious knows you best, and your body will tell you if something is right or wrong. If you're quiet enough to listen and if you're aware enough to pay attention to it, which takes practice, right? Um, the practice of meditation and just getting really quiet and really silent for minutes at a time, ideally longer than that. But the practice of just getting quiet is something that is hard to do in our society. Like, we have just so much going on. We're busy. There's things to look at, things to see, people to talk to. It's like, it's hard to intentionally be silent. But if you can do that and you get in a regular habit of doing that, and you can learn how to tune into like what your body is feeling and what it's how it feels differently day to day, your subconscious will tell you a lot. Like, you can think of like this scenario and this scenario. Like, for example, I had a friend of mine who actually just got fired from a job, and he was like, what do you think I should do? And I was like, you have like an infinite amount of things that could possibly happen from here on out. Like, you could go down so many different paths, right? I was like, I would sit for a second, like, phone out of the room, no temptations. But I was like, I would just let your brain entertain all of these scenarios that you can think about. Like, what if I did this? What if I did this instead? What if I moved away? What if I didn't move away? Like, just anything and everything that you could possibly think of. And I was like, you'll think of probably a couple dozen different scenarios, maybe not that many, but at least a dozen scenarios of possibilities. And I was like, there'll be one or two of them, maybe more, where when you think of that and you actually visualize like clearly like what that could look like and what that could feel like for you, I was like, you'll feel something in your body. Like, you'll feel an emotion when you think of that. I was like, that is where you should go. That's your intuition, like, screaming at you, like, this is what you should be focusing on. Intuition is extremely valuable, and it's not as easy to notice if you're not used to being silent. I've leaned on my intuition and prayer a lot over the past like year or two, and it's like, I can just tell now. Like, I know if something's the right thing. Like, if I can just sit with it for a little while, I have a very strong confidence of one decision versus another.
One of the things I've been thinking about recently is where I'm going to move next in the world and what like life looks like, right? Moving from here. And I've kind of narrowed it down to these three really beautiful options, but they're all different, or they're all beautiful, but for very different reasons.
Mhm.
So you have Australia, which is like this beautiful, magical place in my mind where I can go for a year and like live out my fantasy of living in Australia and be by the beach and meet incredible people, grow the podcast, my business, myself, like all of that. And then you have this other option of Austin, which not as pretty, but an incredible community out there, incredible people, again, growing the business, growing the podcast, but a little different in the sense of I'm starting there fresh and I don't necessarily have a community right away. Mm-hmm. Then there's Atlanta, where it's like my home base with my friends, right? And I'm like, it's comfortable, right? Which is like, am I just liking that option because it's comfortable? Yeah, it's a new city, but it's comfortable because my friends are there. Mm-hmm. So, and when I sit in silence, I feel like I get inklings left or right, and then something will happen in the outside world, and I'm like, wait, hold on. But what if? So has that ever happened to you? And in moments where someone might have multiple decisions they're weighing, what did you use to guide you through that?
Well, I try to distill things down to like the most simple terms, like the fewest most accurate options. Like, so for example, in your example, if you had to put like the main reason, your favorite part about each of those things into one word, like how would you label each of those 3 cities? But in my head, like the way that you kind of, for lack of a better term, like you stack the edges of like giving yourself the best possible, like what's the word? Not the best outcome, but the way to give yourself like a leg up before you even do anything is to kind of really tune into like, what do I want most? Mm-hmm. And then once you can get quiet about it, get clear about what you want of these, these are the 3 options in one word, and you like go into like best case scenario of each, it usually is pretty clear to you, like, or even worst case scenario, you know what I mean? Like whatever the decision is, once you get really quiet and clear, you'll feel something when you think about it, one of them more so than the others.
What advice would you give to someone who feels like it's very hard to get quiet, or they feel like, I've been meditating for God knows how long and my brain is just running. It won't shut up.
Usually for me, if my brain is running and I can't get it to shut off, 2 things have helped me, and it depends on kind of what type of person you are. Whether you're more of like an auditory person or like a visual person, but either brain dumping, like writing your thoughts down on like a piece of paper or a journal or whatever, just to get them out of your cycling brain into paper, like something outside of your own brain. Mm-hmm. Or something that I did recently is literally like face to the camera, just on your own camera, you're not posting it anywhere, but like just talking it out. Some people like process things by saying it. Some people process by writing it. But for me, it really helped just getting these thoughts out of my head and just saying them out loud, even if it was to an empty room, like it was just to myself. Because usually if I feel like I can't quiet my brain down, it's because certain thoughts are like cycling over and over in my head and they need to be released. So either of those 2 tend to help me. And some days are just harder than others. But if you just keep, showing back up, some days you have a great meditation. The other days you're like, I think I focused for like 30 seconds. Right. But it's the intention and the attention of just moving a little bit every day, just trying again. And it's a practice. So you will get better at it as long as you keep going.
Even the greatest basketball players in the world miss shots still. And so like sometimes you're going to show up and it's not going to work. And that's okay. Yeah. But you still showed up. Yeah. And you still are the best basketball player in the world because you showed up.
Exactly. You keep showing up, you will keep improving.
Exactly. I love that about speaking to the camera, though, because I'm very much a person who, when I'm thinking about something, I need to talk about it with someone, whether that be my mom, a friend, literally the door if it'll listen, like someone. Yeah. And to be able to like use literally the phone in our pocket to help reflect back to us what we're talking about, I think that is a great skill that will help with a lot of decision making, especially for our overthinkers and high achievers, me included. So
overthinker for sure. Yeah, and then you can even, like, listen back to it and be like, "What am I actually thinking?" And then you can be like you can even poke holes in your own like, if I have a super analytical brain, so it's like if I hear something that's presented to me, I'm like, "Well, that might not be a good idea." And, like, if someone else says it to me, it's easy for me to be like, "Let me analyze the good and the bad here."
Mhm.
So then if you record yourself saying it, and then the day later you go back and you're like, "Well, that makes no sense at all." You're just being emotional, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Just
it's a
PMSing right now.
it's just like a tool to, like, self-reflect, yeah.
So, with you having such an analytical mind, I thought it was interesting to hear you say that you believe everything happens in perfect timing.
Mm.
Why do you believe that, and how did you get there?
I think I've always, like, had that, like I call it like a belief, but not like a core conviction belief.
Mm.
But, I will say that that conviction dramatically strengthened. There have been so many beautiful things that have happened in my life, just over the course of my life, let me be clear, like, I've had a lot of amazing things happen. For any instance where I'm like, "Wow, that was a really cool thing that happened." It's like if I were to go back a little ways and be like, "Well, if this thing didn't happen, if I didn't" for example, if I didn't show up to work on this one day where I wasn't supposed to be there, and it was, you know, like, out of the blue, random thing, shouldn't have even been there, and that experience, that one day of showing up here and maybe I met someone. And that meeting that shouldn't have ever happened because I wasn't supposed to be working led into this beautiful relationship. Like those types of things, I'm like, there's no way it could have happened any other way. Like, there's no way you could, like, predict that or, like, plan that. And it's like, I think, so I grew up going to church. I was, again, one of 9, but we went to church every Sunday. Even if I didn't wanna go to church, we were forced to go to church. And, so I always grew up learning about God, believing in God, that He existed and all that stuff. And, I never really had, like, my own relationship with Him. Like, I was a kid, and then as I was an adult, I stopped going to church because I was like, "There's so many hypocrites in church." Like, church is, like, just full of people who are, like so I had this very judgmental view on church. It's like, "Well, why do you call yourself a pastor if you're doing these things?" Right? And it was this very, like, "Why should I listen to you if you're a sinner too?" kinda thing. Like, that was kinda my perspective, and it just turned me off of, like, going to church. And then, you know, my fiancé now, when we first met, which was literally a week after all of that stuff happened with my ex, so it was this
Holy
crazy, like and that was the example, I was not supposed to be at work. A week after all this stuff happened, I was in, like, a terrible place, and he showed up and was like we had this great conversation, and he was like, "I wanna take you on a date." And I was like in my head, I was just like, "What? How does this happen?" But one of the first things is he's like, "I would love to take, you and the boys to church." And it was just so funny. I was like, "Okay, like, sure," and he's like, "Well, there's actually a church I go to sometimes that's near your house." And I was like, "All right, yeah, what's it called?" He's like, "It's called Grace Family Church." And I was like, "My uncle's a pastor at that church." And he was like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, like, he's been a pastor there for, like, 30 years or something." So, it was, like, the most like, the one church he suggested. So, I was like, "Alright, yeah, we can go, like, probably run into my uncle or someone there." And
Family.
so, we went, and, my brother was with us at the time, he was in town, and so my brother and me, Ryan, and then my 2 boys, we all went, we showed up, and, church starts, and my cousin Casey walks out on stage, my uncle's son, and he's the worship leader, and they have a big worship team and stuff, and my brother leans over, he's like, "Is that Casey?" I was like, "Yep." It was just like these crazy things kept happening, and I was just like, "What is life right now?" Like, it was just, like, sequence after sequence, and, and even so, like, that just that one thing of, like, "Hey, I wanna take you to church," was just, like and that bloomed into, like, a relationship with God coming back at a time when I needed it most after what happened and, like, trying to deal with all this stuff that, the really hard things that happened in that process, and it's just been, like, one thing after another, so long story condensed now, it's like it's just a personal conviction that has grown into, I believe everything happens for a reason because that's exactly how it should happen. If something is going poorly or if something's happening in my life that's negative, it's just not done yet. Like, something good is coming, and if I choose to believe that something good is coming, something good will come.
Mhm.
And it's just, that's the perspective I've had really my whole life, is just brainwashing myself to believe that something good's gonna come, and it just keeps coming, and I'm like, all right, let's just keep rolling with it. Like,
I ask because I also have the same conviction. And looking at my life, there's a lot of like really weird shit or just like bad shit that's happened, but I know I wouldn't be the woman I am today in the situation I am right now, like traveling literally around the world, doing
yeah,
podcasting, looking at moving to Australia, if I hadn't been through all of that shit before,
Yep.
losing the 4 jobs. And even like to speak to the relationship point of it, how I met my ex, I've only been in one relationship, but how I met him was such a crazy, I don't wanna say fate, but, like,
You can say fate.
it definitely wasn't fate. It was Hinge, but
Even better.
Right. But I wasn't gonna show up to the date because or I'm sorry, we didn't have anything planned, and I had something planned with a different date, and that
Yeah.
guy bailed on me,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, "I'm feeling really good tonight. Let's just see if this guy wants to go grab drinks." Like, I was like, "He just seems cool. I'm not, like, super gung ho about it, but whatever, like, he seems great. Let's have drinks."
Yeah.
And there was a different energy where I was just like, "I know I need to be there tonight."
Yeah. Like
And I
that.
show up and he ends up the pull. And I show up and he ends up being the most incredible person I could have met, and the person that I had been looking for at the time, right? And it didn't work out because he isn't the right person in the long term, but the things I learned about myself from that relationship, the
Mhm.
things I learned about being in a relationship, all of that had to happen so that I could be the woman I am now and
Yep.
show up in a relationship the way I'm going to show up now.
Yep.
But
Oh,
that wouldn't have happened if I would have either went on a date with this other guy or if I would not have reached out to him. So
Yeah.
all of that to say you have to trust the energy in what you're feeling. You have to trust that this is happening for a reason, whatever it is. And
Mhm.
who knows where it can lead you, because it might just take you on a really crazy adventure.
It's easy to look at circumstances and things that happen in life from the lens of like, well, life happened to me. This happened to me. He broke up with me, or they fired me from this job, and like make it reflect on you kind of thing, where it's like the world's against me. But it takes effort, and like conscious effort, to say this crazy terrible thing that happened to me actually made me stronger, and it actually is setting me up for something way better. And it's like all it is a perspective shift. The same thing happened. The same, maybe not the same thing's going to happen in the future, but the same thing happened in the past. It's all about how you view it, right? And that's such a underrated like thing that it's really 100% in your control how you view something that happened. And if you view it in a positive way where it was a lesson and you learned and you grew, it's going to push you towards more growth, more positive things. But if you view it as a negative thing, kind of just like that, what you focus on expands. Whatever you're thinking about lack or abundance is going to start to replicate itself in your life. I feel like we're talking about like the same topic over and over, but it's like so many different ways. It's cool. I love it.
It keeps coming back, I feel like,
Yeah.
as a through line for this
Oh,
podcast of like
100%.
different stories,
Yep.
In your life that have been influenced by this mindset of lack versus abundance.
Yeah.
So, what is something you would tell your younger self if you had the opportunity to?
I would say to not, it's like a weird, because like I would say don't care about what others think, but like not really in like the 3D way. Like I had this, I don't care what other people think about a lot of things. Like I I wear like no makeup. I look like a hobo half the time. Like I literally like I
You
care
look
about
fabulous, by
comfort.
the way. I don't know what you're talking about.
Like I literally walk, like I will walk to my mailbox in my neighborhood, because we live in a townhouse, so I have to walk like a quarter mile or an eighth of a mile, very short walk to the mailbox. And like I'm always barefoot. Like everyone in the neighborhood is like, you don't have shoes on. I'm like, oh yeah, I know. I like to walk
I like to
barefoot.
feel the grass.
I love to go to the field and grass, but it's like I'll wear like a baggy t-shirt and like pajama pants, like 2 p.m. in the afternoon because I'm like, I'm working at home all day. I wear what I want, but it's just like, I don't care. Like, I'll go to Publix and that, like, I don't care what people think in that sense. But when it comes to how I think people view me based on my actions and based on what I say, like, and it's interesting because like I understand that I have my own lens. Kind of, we talked about how we view the world is based on our own experience. It's based on our own lens. Like, if we think the world's out to get us, I'm going to think you're out to get me, even if you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I understand that logically, but it's always been this very hard thing that if I say something, if I do something with good intentions, and your response to me is, well, you're a horrible person, for example, I take that to heart and I get upset about that. Like, it bothers me. I'm like, why would they think I'm a horrible person? I'm not. Like, that's something that I would tell my younger self to really focus on earlier on. Um, and I don't think it had as much like 3D impact of like keeping me from doing certain things. I mean, it probably did. Like, now that I'm actually working through it, like, I'm curious to see like what the difference will be in the future. As far as, especially my business, showing up on social media where it's like, I have good intentions and there's these horrible comments that are being posted. And it's like, that could stop me in the past. That could have stopped me in the past from posting. Oh, I just don't want anyone to say those mean things to me and it bothers me. But working through that and just really internalizing what I know logically of like, people just have their own view of me and I can't control it. And I just need to worry about how I'm showing up and whether I'm spreading love, whether I'm spreading kindness, whether I'm giving value with good intentions. And no matter how someone else views me based on their own lens, don't take it to heart. And so like I said, I can't think of like a specific thing that consciously that impacted me, but I know it has impacted me subconsciously in probably ways that I will never know. But we'll see in the future.
Well, and to your point, it just affects how we show up.
Mhm.
And even if we can't pinpoint the exact moment, we know, oh yeah, I showed up differently then than I
Mhm.
was now.
Right.
And so,
Playing small.
yeah, playing small, not living our best lives, maybe even feeling more anxious than we were now. Because one of the crazy things I've realized is I was so stressed out all the time and didn't even realize it was stress because I thought that was how you're supposed to normally live life. And you're like,
Oh.
oh, you're not supposed to have your fists clenched like this all the time. Got it. Okay.
Just not supposed to be clenched either.
Yeah, literally. Literally.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And it's like, I think you don't really understand it until you see the other side of it. Right? Like, you
Mhm.
can't you don't realize you were in a cage until you get out of the cage. And then you're just like, wait, I was in a cage this whole time? Like,
Exactly.
so it's like, once you start to, you know, realize these things about yourself and you're like, I don't like that. I want to work to change it. And you start to make these changes in yourself and you start to change how you show up and, maybe you become more authentic in like what you say. And instead of like holding back a thought that you really want to say, but you don't want anyone to think badly of you, now you're like, you know what? I will say it because it's actually true to me and I have a belief about it.
Mhm.
And that impacts, ripple effect other people.
Amen, sister. Well, on that note, Marilee, where can we find you?
Largely on Instagram. I don't really do TikTok. I don't really do YouTube yet or anything like that, but Instagram is largely where I post a lot of my stuff. Marileegrace is my handle. And then obviously I have my community FTA, so foundational trading .mn.co is kind of where my students all go. And then I have stuff in my Instagram bio with, a freebie and a couple different things that you can kind of see how I teach and things like that in there.
Hell yeah. Well, go find her. And thank you so much for being on Expert Rookie. We love you. You're incredible. And we'll hopefully see you soon.
Thank you for having me. It's a blast.
Woo! Let's go. Woo! Let's go. let me side quest with you for a minute. One of the things I've been thinking about recently is where I'm going to move next in the world and what like life looks like, right? Moving from here. And I've kind of narrowed it down to these 3 really beautiful options, but they're all different. Or they're all beautiful, but for very different reasons. So you have Australia, which is like this beautiful, magical place in my mind where I can go for a year and like live out my fantasy of living in Australia and be by the beach and meet incredible people, grow the podcast, my business, myself, like all of that. And then you have this other option of Austin, which not as pretty, but an incredible community out there, incredible people, again, growing the business, growing the podcast, but a little different in the sense of I'm starting there fresh and I don't necessarily have a community right away. Then there's Atlanta, where is like my home base with my friends, right? And I'm like, it's comfortable, right? Which is like, am I just liking that option because it's comfortable? Yeah, it's a new city, but it's comfortable because my friends are there. So, and when I sit in silence, I feel like I get inklings left or right, and then something will happen in the outside world, and I'm like, wait, hold on. But what if? What if? So has that ever happened to you? And in moments where someone might have multiple decisions they're weighing, what did you use to guide you through that?
Well, I try to distill things down to like the most simple terms, like the fewest most accurate options. Like, so for example, in your example, if you had to put like the main reason, your favorite part about each of those things into one word, like how would you label each of those 3 cities?
Good.
Like your main draw to them.
Okay. Australia, adventure.
Okay.
Austin, business and entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Atlanta, shit. Atlanta, friends.
Okay. So close your eyes.
Okay.
And just take a second to like super clearly visualize like your exact ideal adventure, your exact like exact and ideal and vivid like panning out of each of those things. So adventure, like the best adventure you could possibly have. With Austin, the best scenario that could possibly lead into. And then same with Atlanta, like visualize clearly like the best case scenario for each of those.
Okay.
Which one gave you butterflies? Because you smiled on one of them.
Australia.
That's how I would break it down. Because
let the
body
butterflies
tells
come.
you. Yeah, your intuition, like it's you. It's the deepest part of you without the logic in there. And kind of back to what my mom said, it's like you need to follow what you love, right? You have to pursue what you love because that's how you're going to be the most fulfilled in your life. You could always come back. Right? You could get there. You could get there and be like, you know what? I actually don't really like it. I'm going to go back. But at least you gave yourself that shot of doing what you really wanted to do and giving it the opportunity to pan out how you ideally think it could pan out. I have a friend that moved to New Zealand and he said it was the best decision he's ever made in his life. He loves it there.
I've heard very good things about New Zealand.
He loves
Side
it.
note.
He's like a hiker and he's hiked all of the Lord of the Rings mountains. Like he's a huge Lord of the Rings guy. Like
epic. He
like converted a van into a like he's just living his best life. And if he had never gone, he was comparatively he was so much more miserable here than he is there. Right? You know what I mean? Like you never know what's going to happen in any scenario. Like you could move to Atlanta and have a horrible time. You could move to anywhere and have a horrible time.